So our last kind of section is ATAR study tips. And yeah, so that's what we're going to have a quick look at now. So again, a really key point that I really want you guys to remember. There's not just one way to get a good ATAR. It's not do these subjects, study for these hours, and boom, there's your 99.95. That's just not how it works, because we all have different strengths and preferences. We all have different ways we work, different subjects we're good at. And honestly, the best way to do the best you possibly can is to just find your element, maximize the things that you're good at, and yeah, find all those different strategies that work for you. So we're going to be breaking that down a little bit now in the next 20 or so minutes. So like I said, we have different goals. We have different expectations, different strengths. We're all different. That's kind of the bottom line, really. But the basic question is, like we were saying, how can you maximize your marks? And that might be by choosing certain subjects. It might be by employing certain techniques, all these different ways we can think about it. The 5 main tips that we're going to have a look at today. First one, have a system of organization. This is really important. Even if you're not a very admin orientated person, it's still quite important, even if it is a bit difficult. Second, keep balance. Third, when you study, actually study. Fourth, do the little things right consistently. And 5, use the resources available to you. So I'm going to go through these in a little bit more depth now. So first one, step 1, have a system. It's actually, we all know how easy it is to get overwhelmed by study. Like, oh my gosh, I have 17 assignments due, or I've got this many notes to take from all these PowerPoints, and things can just get quite piled up, and it can sometimes just hit you all at once. And those are quite often the moments when everything becomes so overwhelming and it seems so impossible. But how we can actually prevent that is by having a good system and being organized and staying on top of things earlier, so that you're kind of ahead of it, you know what to expect, you've budgeted your time well and all of that. And it allows you to really break things down so that it's not this big overwhelming task. Because if you leave every assignment to the night before, it's probably not going to be your best work, and it's probably going to be overwhelming. And having a system, it's not going to mean that you're going to have a stress-free, perfect year 12, but it will help remove so much of that unnecessary stress of oh my goodness, I didn't realize all this stuff was due all at once. So being organized and on top of it, so important. Definitely something I really, really encourage. My next kind of big tip though is that my system doesn't have to be your system. And unless we kind of think similarly and have similar personality types, it actually shouldn't be your system. Your system should be the system that works for you. And again, another few kind of resources. There's heaps of kind of resources out there for here's one way, to organize your time. Here's one way to do this and that and that. So if you're actually not kind of sure on the system that might work for you, you can actually research it. There's a whole bunch of different resources out there. This is just an example of one. I personally look at this and I'm oh my gosh, that is so overwhelming. I couldn't handle this. It's just too big for me. But some people look at this and think oh my gosh, this is awesome. It breaks everything down so well. They've got their whole week broken down, and for all the different dates. So they've got Monday, and it's got hour by hour from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. a consistent bedtime. That's another important thing. They've got time set aside for their classes. They've got time set aside for other things that are important to them, like going to the gym, eating. They've got time set aside for study, which is really important. And they can just really visually see what their kind of week and month looks like. So this is just one example of a study system that you can use. But again, if that overwhelms you, that's okay. That doesn't have to be the system that you use. You've got to find something that works for you. Another thing, sometimes for some people, daily checklists of, okay, what is my goals for today? If you plan in advance and look ahead to find out what do I kind of need to have done by each day, you can actually come up with a really set list of these are the things that I need to get done. And if I know that if I get all of these done, then I know that I'm going to be on track with keeping up with all of my tasks. So that's another way you can do it. And then also it's really visual, so you can cross them off once you've finished them. That might be a system that works for you. Highlighting certain things, coming up with a new list for each day. Again, these are all systems that might work for you. Personally, this is what I use. So I use a combination of a few different things. So this is actually my weekly schedule. So that's one thing I have. So this is like my weekly rhythm, my weekly routine. What does my each week look like consistently? I also use a paper calendar. For me, a digital calendar just doesn't work. If it works for you, that's awesome. Go for it. Again, your system is your system. My system is my system. But I can't visualize it when it's kind of, well, yeah, what we were saying, when it's when it's on my laptop, it just doesn't quite click in my head. So to overcome that, I use a paper one. And what I do is at the start of each semester at university, I put all of my assessment due dates in my calendar and I highlight them. I have a certain color that I use. So when I look over my month, I can visually see when each of my assessments are due so that I can plan ahead and see like, oh, I've got lots of stuff written in for that week. I know that's going to be busy. So I can actually plan around what I have on in my life. And then I also have a digital daily to-do list for all the little things that kind of pop up in your head. So in my schedule, I've got time blocked out for work. I've got time blocked out for my uni lectures and classes. And then I've also got time blocked out for like other things that are important to me. So for example, I attend Bible studies at university. I help out at youth group on a Friday night. And for me, it's really important to have Sunday set aside for church. That's a priority of mine. So I actually, like my calendar, my schedule actually reflects this, because if I wasn't intentional about setting time aside for these things, it would be so easy to allow for other things to come in and take up that time. Sometimes I do have like extra social events on a Saturday, for example, and that's where my calendar comes in, because I put extra social events in my calendar because they're not something that occurs in my every week, but it is something that I need in my calendar so I can be aware of. But again, my system doesn't have to be your system. Find a system of organization that works for you so that you can keep all your due dates and everything straight in your head. And if you're feeling a bit lost or you don't have a system yet, that's okay. Like, there is no better time to start like today, or like there's like that quote, the best time to plant a tree is 10 years ago. The second best time is today. I know it might feel like, no, it's already too late, I can't get on top of it, but it's only April, no matter what grade you're in. I'd really encourage you to set some time aside and try to figure out like what actually does work for me. Maybe I need it on my phone, maybe I need it on paper, like what actually is going to work for you. Okay, number 2, how are we going for time? Okay, we've only got like 10 or 15 minutes left. So, friends, my second tip is balance. It's all about getting academically buff. Now, what do I mean like that? In high school, and now still while I'm in uni, I know that I do my best study at my desk or in the library at uni. I know that there are set places that I know that I'm actually going to be really productive. So for you, again, find what works best for you. Maybe it's studying in different areas. Maybe it's studying consistently in the same area. It's whatever works best for you. Another key thing with balance, you can actually see from my schedule in the previous slides that I actually set time aside for spending time with like my friends. I set time aside for church. And so if you know that it's really important for you to have that connection with friends, maybe you do need to book some time into your schedule to, hey, like I actually do need to spend some time with a friend this week. And that's not using it as a tool to procrastinate. That's actually being intentional and prioritizing balance and well-being. Because if you just do nothing but study 24/7 for all of year 12, it's quite possible that you might end up burnt out, and that's not sustainable or healthy, and certainly not the goal. We really want to be considering the long game. And you are so close. You've been at school for like 12, 13 years and you're almost there. So keep the goal in mind. And another really important tip when it comes to balance is to actually sleep more. And to link that in with organization. When you have been organized, when you know you've spent your day well, you actually sleep better anyway. Again, I know there are a lot of people out there that struggle with sleep and sleep disorders, and that is such a challenging thing. And I'm not just telling you to like get over your sleep disorder and sleep better. Like, no, I know there are challenges out there, and like that is such a hard and difficult thing. But if it is possible for you try find your healthiest sleep schedule. That's actually really important. So I'd really encourage you to, as much as it is possible for you in your personal situation, I'd encourage you to really prioritize sleep. And again, if you know you've spent your day well, that actually can help you get a good night's sleep so much. But I know personally, if I've like procrastinated all day and then I'm left writing my assignment late at night, that's actually not when I get my best sleep, because I'm interrupting my sleep, I'm messing with my sleep schedule, and I also feel guilty for procrastinating. So all of that can influence your sleep. 3, when you study, actually study. This meme here is a little bit entertaining, because so often, for me personally, when I'd be like, oh, I'm going to study with friends, I never actually end up studying because I get distracted by socializing. And like, that's totally okay. There's a time and a place for that. But I know that if I need to be studying, I need to be by myself at my desk studying. Sometimes like it might work for me to mix it up, or sometimes for you might have different ways that work best for you. But if you know something is going to like distract you, take you away from your study, that is actually going to be fun short term, but is actually going to leave you in like a worse position long term, then it's probably actually quite a wise idea to be really aware of that and work around that. Again, there is such a time and a place for that social time with friends. But if you know it's like, if you've got like proper study time booked in, you need to make sure you're doing that in the most productive manner. For you, that might be studying with friends, it might be studying individually. Again, it's whatever works best for you. And study preparation is actually really important as well. So like, how are you preparing for your study? So for example, that might be turning off your phone, it might be handwriting notes, setting yourself up somewhere nice. Maybe it's using your laptop. Again, we're coming back to how can you maximize your effectiveness, and limiting these distractions is actually better overall, because again, then you're guilt-free and it just helps you be so much more productive. And if home actually isn't the best place where you study, there are lots of other places. Like you might be able to, some schools let you stay back and use the library. There might be the local library. You might be able to sit outside. There's a lot of different options. And again, it's all about the long-term preparations for exams. Some might say study hygiene, I've heard it be referred to as. You'll actually need to study less, because when you're maximizing your time and using it effectively, you're actually going to be way more effective. So study smarter, not harder. So if, for example, reading over notes doesn't help you, then watch videos instead. It's all about finding those ways that help you learn things the most effectively. And again, if it's not working for you, don't be afraid to actually change up how you study, or even before the end of this year. Or right now, I just really encourage you to start exploring different things that work for you. So here's just one example of lists. It might be paper notes, flashcards, songs, diagrams, elaborate on your notes, linking content to things you enjoy, mind maps, chunking. There's so many different techniques out there, and I'd encourage you to explore different ways to see how you learn. Because for me, I actually quite enjoy reading and just reading the notes that I've actively taken and creating summaries. I find that really helpful for me. But for some people, that's not how you study best, and that's okay. So feel free to, again, download these slides, have a look at these different examples, and explore again what's actually going to work best for you. And again, ATAR Notes has a lot of resources that help with these kind of things as well. So what worked for me? So for content heavy subjects, I did a lot of summaries. So for like biology, for like protein synthesis, I watched like YouTube videos and then wrote out like step-by-step summaries to make sure that I understood it. And for me, paper notes was a big thing. Maybe that's something for you, maybe it's not. And then also videos, again, was an important thing for me. Like English, like dot point essays can really help like scaffold your thinking while still like not being too like time costly. And also like going to people in your life for feedback. And then for maths, just practice questions, practice exams, practice. Apply that knowledge. And maybe, again, these strategies might be similar for you. They might be different. It's all about how you learn best. 4, do the small things well. Realistically, you'll all have a lot of access to teachers, textbooks, free resources. And if you don't have access to a lot of these, again, I really encourage like the ATAR Notes resources. They've got a lot of free good ones. So make the most of the resources. If you have time to work on something in school, actually being intentional about your preparation with your assessment at home means that when you rock up to class, you can actually ask the teacher your question, so you can make the most of that class time. Instead of getting to school and be like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what to do for the assessment, so I actually can't even ask the teacher for help because I don't know where to start. We've all been there, and that's okay, but preparation can help us avoid that and actually make the most of class time. Another thing is doing the small things well consistently can and does add up. It's like the saying, Rome wasn't built in a day. Things take time. Progress is it's all about the small habits in the long run. Like if you're exercising or trying to get in shape, it's a slow progress over time. A net gain is something small that adds up over time, and it gives you an advantage over other students, because when you're like in your lane, you know what works for you. It's just such a win and makes studying so much more effective. So again, small things that you can work on, like hydration, sleep, posture, doing that extra 5 minutes, paying attention in class, sleeping and eating well, all those important things. And 5, resources. Actually use the resources that are available to you. I put the link here to the QCE ATAR. So actually check out the syllabus, actually find out what's required of you. Look at the practice internal assessments. If you look at the assessment tab on the QCE ATAR website for your specific subject, they actually have example assessments that are like annotated and broken down. And those are so helpful when figuring out how am I actually meant to be meeting these criteria. So check out everything on the QCE ATAR because they're super valuable resources. Again, ATAR Notes has a bunch of really cool ones. There's actually a lot of free notes and you can filter them by state, subject, unit, year level, all of that. So the example I put up on the screen here is for biology. So you can see if you're looking for some biology notes to help with your study, that might be helpful for you. There's also the free QCE lectures, which is what we have right here today. So good job on being here. They're free for students by students. So hopefully I've been able to help give you some tips as well from my own personal experience. And then there's also other free QCE resources at that link there, which is kind of linked all the QCE ones together, which is really cool. And then again, like I mentioned earlier, there's also the QCE study guides. So to review, have a system, make sure you've got balance when you study, actually study, do the small things well and use what's available to you.